I think that the running backs are explosive, but not the most durable. And also, none of the running backs are going to be 1,000-yard rushers. So they're going to need some rushing juice from Avery Johnson. And I think he'll be more decisive this year in his decision-making, process a little faster, make the decision to take off a little sooner. He didn't get sacked a ton last year, but when he did, there were some big volume yardage losses when he did. I think those will be erased for the most part this year.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. Today it is everybody's favorite episode. It's the one where we get to find out which 7 K-State Wildcats are going to shatter school records this year, because it is Cole's over-unders, which inevitably always end up with the greatest seasons in K-State history across the board. Well, DY and I try to play a little bit of defense and just maintain some sanity in the discussion there. Of course, it's always brought to you by our friends at Holiday Distillery. They supply the Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon and 360 vodka for your football seasons, and they're even going to do a little something special for you for the K-State Iowa State game, which is coming up. I don't know if you guys realize this, in just over 3 weeks. That's on August 23rd. We're throwing a watch party, people. So if you want to come watch K-State Iowa State with us, see us live in the flesh, except for DY, because he'll be in Ireland. You know, he's a big J journo. But Cole and I, you can come hang out with us. Doors open at 10 a.m. at Holiday Distillery in Weston, Missouri. It is a watch party that will go until the game ends at 3 p.m. Now, here's the deal. Get your tickets. Tickets are $25, which includes a welcome cocktail, a live pregame show, and then a live post-game show, plus tastings of Five Farms Irish Cream and Holiday Bourbon, and hot dogs and hamburgers. So you're going to get fed. You're going to get drinks. It's going to be booze all over the place from our friends at Holiday Distillery. We hear all the time how much you guys like and love Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon. If you want to come out and have some live on the scene with Cole, Cole has told me if you come and you pay $25 for the ticket, he will cheers with you. So you can have a cheers moment with Cole. Is that fair to say, Cole?
I'll get liquored up with everybody, and we'll do shots of Holiday Bourbon after every K-State touchdown. I will say that college football runs through Ireland, Europe, whatever you guys want me to do. I'll get drunk and I'll say something stupid like that time we did at Tanner's after the Oklahoma win in Norman.
Well, so that's what I was just realizing this. I'm being a good soldier here and reading my sheet that I was given with the info for this. I don't scrap the sheet. The last time we did a live show like this, it was the Oklahoma game in 2022, and the vibes were just incredible all over the place. Like, we had Marquise Noel and Naquan Tomlin on the show beforehand. Cole thought the football season was done. He was not even excited for the game, and then by the end of the night, he was taking shots with a Texas fan who was really excited that Oklahoma was losing, and he was saying wild shit on the podcast. So I don't know what more you need to actually get out there to this watch party, because that's what happened last time. So
we did do a live show since then at a game, but it was.
Did we?
We did one at the Big 12 championship game, but it was pre-game the night before, I think.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. Still a little bit different.
Yeah. A little different, but yeah, we did do a pregame show from a bar before then. We obviously do tons of live shows after games, immediately post-game, but not on site. So the on-site stuff, and when Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon, which is my go-to, is right there, like I'm in the distillery, it could get pretty dangerous that day. Saturday starting at 11. John just asked me if I wanted to stick around and watch the KU game at 5:30. Like, I may not be standing at that point, hopefully, because we're partying so hard. I'm going to go find the nearest Iowa State bar and have a good old time afterwards.
Well, also, as somebody pointed out on the Discord, patreon.com/3ma, if you'd like to join the Discord, when we watch the Iowa State game together, wild things tend to happen, Cole. We had the Malik Knowles fumble into the end zone moment where I just collapsed onto the floor. Last year, K-State was busy turning the ball over by the time I was walking down the steps of your basement. So, who knows? It could get pretty wild.
The snow game.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't watch that with Cole though.
No.
Both of those, John, were negatives. Let's try to have a positive Wild moment that happens.
Well, but I mean, okay, but they won. They won the 2022 game, and it was a very funny moment. So if you enjoy the hijinks of the podcast, I've never been a more broken man than when Malik Knowles fumbled the ball into the end zone in Ames in 2022.
Well, if you're looking for an Iowa State bar, I would just go to Power and Light. There's probably one there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll go hang out there. So,
yeah. No, don't do that, people. Link in the description of the show if you want tickets. If you want tickets to the watch party, get them at the link in the description of the show. Please come join us, hang out. Okay, before we get into Cole's over-unders, real quick, we had a press conference this week. Chris Kleiman presser. Any big takeaways, DY, from the Kleiman presser?
Maybe some like offensive line nuggets in light of the George Fitzpatrick, medical incident where it sounds like John Pastore getting the reps at left tackle, maybe JB Nelson at right guard now with potentially a position battle there at right tackle, which I think is what we projected. Maybe not the two we thought it'd be, but Tarantinos and Andrew Langang there. So, and then maybe an update on some of those defensive players that are trying to get fully cleared after off-season surgeries. It sounds like we're talking maybe 2 days, and you'll have both Ace Newsome and Gunnar Maldonado back fully, and then a week after that, Colby McAllister. I don't think I'm missing anything else. I mean, it was a 20-25 minute press conference, but I think those are the highlights.
Yeah, interesting to me to hear about right tackle. I thought, I guess it makes sense that you just play JB Nelson. Like if JB Nelson's going to be a plus guard, play him. If you've got at least adequate tackle play at right tackle that you could use there. But look, John Pastore hype really building. Just need to keep him healthy. And, seems encouraging enough on George Fitzpatrick and the timeline for him to come back too. So I found that to be a pretty encouraging update on the offensive line, at least as of right now. Cole, did you have anything?
No, I think the biggest point of encouragement is that Chris Kleiman made it pretty clear that George Fitzpatrick will be back at some point this season. It's not a season-ending deal, which we didn't expect as of the last few days when we'd heard some of the encouraging updates. But, the stuff on John Pastore and the hype that we're hearing there is super, super encouraging. And, ultimately, if they can get George Fitzpatrick back and in the form he was in before the medical incident, K-State could have a pretty good tackle combination if John Pastore hits his ceiling. So, that would be great. And let's hope for that. I think they're pretty solid on the interior of the offensive line with Portier, Hecht, and JB Nelson. And I like hearing the buzz that we're hearing on JB Nelson.
Seems like he's a stud, man. That one pretty easy to predict from his background at Penn State, but it definitely seems like he is a stud. All right, well, K-State's probably going to break school records in rushing, right, Cole? Like, why don't we start with the offense there to start right there?
Did last year.
Well, yeah, John, we did break school records last year by quite a bit.
Look, I'm aware. Avery Johnson, school record for touchdown passes, too. So I'm not saying that it doesn't ever happen, but maybe not as much as it's predicted.
Cole had it right that the offense would shatter some records. He just picked the wrong ones.
John, DY and I did a Patreon show last night at patreon.com/3ma, and DY was actually like raising the bar on some. We didn't pitch the over-under numbers necessarily.
Cole went the other way. He got too conservative this time.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, are you telling me DY has already seen the number? DY has
No, he hasn't. No, he did a bold prediction on the Patreon show.
I was doing hot takes, bold predictions, and then Cole's like, "Well, mine was too low." Then I was like,
okay.
"Yeah,
yes, yeah." Like he had Avery Johnson leads the team in rushing yards, and he threw a number out, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't have that." So he has not seen the numbers. Nobody has, only me. And I might have made some adjustments to the numbers late last night, guys. So we're going to start.
It was like, how people overcorrect, John? I think Cole did an overcorrection. That's what.
Well, I can't imagine why. I mean, it's not like we don't bully him or, we've never bullied him about it.
Yeah, you guys are in my head. I sit there and I overthink it now because I'm like, oh, they're going to be so mean to me on the show. So, anyways, we'll start. Avery Johnson. We got actually a few on him. All right, so he threw for 2,712 yards last season. That was the 5th most yards passing in a single season in school history, ranked behind only Jake Waters, 3,501 in 2014. Great decision to go with Jake in 2014 at QB. Josh Freeman in 2007 and 2008. And then Michael Bishop's 2844 in passing yards in 1998. I'm going to come out of the gate, guys. Like, it doesn't feel like that huge of a jump to me. I'm setting the over-under passing yards for Avery at 3,000, which would pass Josh Freeman's 2008 season of 2,945 yards to rank 3rd all-time in school history.
I think he probably flirts with it just based on development. And you have to factor in the potential of playing an extra game if this thing gets to Arlington like some want it to. If you don't think it gets to Arlington, then obviously it becomes a little bit more of an uphill climb. I'll probably, just because of the rushing thing that I'm already kind of on, I'll play it conservative and say he's a touch under.
If you think it's going to be just a 12-game season, you're asking for 250 yards a game. If we're thinking Big 12 championship, it's about 230 yards per game.
We're including the bowl game here too, John, because those numbers, I included the bowl.
Yeah, but so it's one more game than last year, if you think they'll get early.
Okay. I'm old school, Cole. They didn't used to count the bowl game stats.
Yeah, that's true. You don't have them go to Arlington anyway, so there's not an extra game factored in for you.
So if you're then going by 14, it's like 214 yards per game versus 230. So I'd be looking at 230 yards per game. I mean, a lot of considerations here. I think the passing game will be better with Matt Wells this year as the offensive coordinator. I think they will at least be slightly better in the receiving core, whether or not you're buying all the way in. And we should take with a grain of salt the wide receiver hype. But if you're buying Tibbs, Bradley, etc., making things better with Chase Brown, I think there's a lot of reason to believe the passing game will actually be better. One other thing I would bring up, and I know crappy thing of me to do, but I do feel like it's pertinent in the discussion, is like you got to think about health. Last year, Avery Johnson stayed pretty damn healthy. He got knocked out of like half of a series against Colorado. But then also, like toward the end of the year, gets a little beat up, has to rely more on the passing game. If he is a better passer this year and can do a more effective job of that, the numbers could go up toward the end of the year. With all that being said, like I'm going to take the passing game to gel a little bit more toward the back half of the year with what I think will be a better offensive coordinator. I'll say slightly over.
I'm slightly under. I am a believer in the passing getting better, but I don't know if it's going to be like super significantly. Like I'm in on Jerron Tibbs, the rest of the wide receiver hype, like Jerron Tibbs, Chase Brown, I'll buy. The rest I'm waiting to see.
I'm taking the over, guys. Surprise. All right. Avery set the school record for passing touchdowns in a single season last year with 25. He broke the record that was set by Will Howard, or tied by Will Howard, in 2023 that L. Roberson had previously owned, that he had established in 2003. DY thought my number was like, I was going to set it at like 26, John, last night on the Patreon show. Like he threw out a random number who lead, passing touchdowns, etc. And he did know this number because I was like, well, I just set it at 26. He was like, nah, I'm gonna raise the bar on that. So I'm going to put the passing touchdowns that Avery breaks the record again, but not only breaks it, pushes it beyond the limits a little at 27.5 over under.
See, I think that's over. I think there's more likely that they'll score through the air than just amass a ton of yards to the air, because it's still Kansas State to the point where they'll, I think, be balanced enough where the yards will be tempered some. And again, I'm not buying the entire receiver room just yet, but in terms of touchdown passes, I'll buy, because you have all those tight ends. Dylan Edwards is going to probably house a long one at some point, stuff like that. So because I think, and just the explosiveness in the passing game, I think will allow it. I think this will go over. It wouldn't surprise me at the end of the day, especially if you get that extra game, if Avery's flirting more with 30 than he is 25. Hey,
well, speaking of the presser, Devon Rice, maybe house him one or two, huh? Yeah. A little bit of hype around him. I would go over. I mean, I think that's going to go hand in hand with me taking the over on the passing yards. DY makes a great point with the tight ends. Like that's where they do their damage in the red zone, or at least it's where Connor Riley did his damage in the red zone. Maybe things look different. Maybe it's maybe JB Bradley. Maybe they can be lobbing fade balls up to him if he can use his size effectively in the red zone.
Antonio Martin notwithstanding, and he's missed a few practices so far, but we don't think it's long-term or serious or anything of that nature. But, like, you don't really have that obvious,
Big back.
rushing bell cow back like DJ Giddens that's going to run for 1,500 yards and he can just give it to inside the 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under on this, guys. I think he'll hover right around that number, but let's be clear, the passing touchdown record stood from L. Roberson for 21 years, 20 years, of 24 passing touchdowns. So I guess I know the record was tied in 2023 and broken in 2024. So we're seeing a trend of more of that occurring. But I'll take the odds here that it'll be slightly under. I think K-State will have more rushing scores this year. Actually, not a high volume of rushing touchdowns last year in the grand scheme of things. I mean, Avery had 7. DY and I were talking last night. Dylan had 5? And DJ didn't have a high volume of rushing touchdowns. Early on in the year, he hardly had any touchdowns on the ground. Guy couldn't get in the red zone or get in the end zone, but he was carrying the load down the field. So I'll go slightly under.
DJ Giddens had seven rushing touchdowns.
Oh, did he? All right. Well, forget what I said. So.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not a ton.
To be honest, if you guys are going to talk about, you guys talked about maybe the durability thing impacting the passing game. Well, durability is more of a question in the backfield than any other spot in the offense, probably.
Yeah. Let me give you one more Avery question.
Antonio Martin's already missing practice. Joe Jackson's had 2 surgeries, and Dylan Edwards missed a game last year and was banged up in 2 or 3 others.
I'll give you one more Avery over-under. I've got more, but I want to make sure we get to everything before we all got to run and before we throw to a break. So let's do this one real quick. Avery Johnson ran for 605 yards in 2024 on 113 attempts, 5.4 yards per carry. But keep in mind that in the first 5 games last year, he had 321 yards on the ground on 44 rushes, averaging 8 yards a carry, 64 yards per game. He got banged up in game 6 against Colorado. And from game 6 through 10 of the season last year, Avery had 35 rushes for 91 yards. So 2.6 yards per carry and 18 yards per game on the ground. But if you extrapolated the pace he was on in the first 5 games over the final 8 games last year, he would have ran for 832 yards. So I'm going to set the over-under for Avery rushing yards in 2025 at 869.
I'm over because I think that the running backs are explosive, but not the most durable. And also none of the running backs are going to be 1,000-yard rushers. So they're going to need some rushing juice from Avery Johnson. And I think he'll be more decisive this year in his decision-making, process a little faster, make the decision to take off a little sooner. He didn't get sacked a ton last year, but when he did, there were some big volume yardage losses when he did. I think those will be erased for the most part this year. And Cole mentioned this too on the Patreon when we discussed this. Avery Johnson's longest run in the season last year was 33 yards. I bet he has 3 or 4 longer than 33 yards this year. I really do. Will Howard had 3 70-yard runs in one season. At some point, we're going to see that from Avery Johnson as well. So I will go over here. I think he's the leading rusher on the team, and I feel pretty convicted in that.
The reason I would go under is I think if he's going to be healthy enough the entire season to go over 3,000 yards passing and over the passing touchdowns, I don't think he can be. I know he's bigger. I know he's theoretically a little bit more durable, but I just don't think they can run him a ton. And we saw, once the season, the wear and tear of the season caught up to him a little bit, he was not willing to do that nearly as much. So I'm going to bank on improvement in the passing game. Avery, look, it's been pretty clear that he's wanted to establish himself as a guy who can throw the ball. I think he's going to stick to that, want to do that, want to develop as a quarterback that way, and that'll be the way that his game has to really evolve here. So I'm going to take the under.
I'm gonna lean toward the under on this as well, but I do think he's gonna. I think there's a good chance he leads K-State in rushing yards. I think there's a good chance he's close to around 800 yards on the ground and makes a jump there because I think his instincts are going to allow him to take off and run quicker this year. I know we talk about sometimes guys are going to sit in the pocket more as they get more experience and they're going to keep their eyes downfield. But I felt like Avery at times last year actually, stayed in the pocket too much, and maybe the game was moving really fast early on, and there were opportunities that he could have taken off and actual scramble chances to get upfield and get 15, 20 yards and take what the defense is giving you. And I think the game is going to slow down in that sense this year, where there are going to be times where he does take off and run more. And to what DY brought up, 33 yards is the longest rushing attempt last year, which occurred against Cincinnati near the end of the year. Yeah, I think I would have been stunned going into last year if you would have told me his longest run would be 33 yards on the entirety of the season. I expect Avery to bust a couple of big ones this year. And as a result, I think his number will go up on the rushing yard total, but I'm not going to go to 869 or over that number. I'm going to stay slightly under. And to that point, I know we got to throw to a break. Avery had 3,317 total yards last season, which was the sixth most in season in K-State history. The school record is 3,985 yards by Jake Waters in 2014. Just a legend for a quarterback. And again, just a really good decision by Bill Snyder there. And he also rushed for 484 yards while throwing for 3,501. The second most, guys, is 3,592 yards by Michael Bishop in 1998.
He'll get that number this year. He won't get the number one number, in my opinion. Something to think about too. Guys get older, they can kind of tell when they need their legs to win a game. I get that Avery's kind of been hesitant or reticent to really use his legs and want to prove people that he can be that passing quarterback that folks really didn't believe he could be at one point. But I think the older you get, sometimes you realize if we're going to win this game, it's going to be on my legs, and they could just go out and do it. The older they get, they finally realized some of those things.
But the best point I think you made was busting the long runs, because, man, I was watching the Big 12 actually did a good job putting together like a whole highlight reel of Avery's season. And I was watching that the other night, and I was like, dude, there are like 3 runs where he just like breaks. It looks like it's wide open, and then someone's catching up and getting an angle down the field, and you're like, how did that not turn?
Or he just takes a beeline to the sideline and kind of just like gives in on that play, probably because of health reasons.
Guys, real quick, because DY mentioned this, Will Howard had a 70-yard run at Oklahoma State in 2023. He had a 71-yard at Texas in 2021, and in the pandemic season, he had an 80-yard run at TCU, and he had a 69-yard run against Oklahoma State in Manhattan.
Yeah, and like Will Howard should have like 460-plus yard runs and Avery 0. So I think that'll even itself out. Hopefully, we'll see.
Forgot that TCU one being 80 yards is hilarious when he was a freshman, true freshman.
The funny that Max Duggan had one on K-State like that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have more over-unders coming up next.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to, and I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust, and I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible, and they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN, and that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
Folks, nothing beats hanging out with the boys on a hot summer day and watching some baseball. And the simplest way that you all can get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It is crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. And the best part is, Pick 6 is available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and then use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Bonus picks expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
We going to receivers next?
I was actually going to go to running backs real quick, guys.
Okay. All right.
So we know K-State had some school records last year on the ground, set the school record for rushing yards per carry at 6.1, shattered the previous season single season mark, rushed for 2,800 yards as a team. Look, they're replacing DJ Giddens, and K-State's had a running back run for at least 1,200 yards each of the last 4 seasons between Deuce Vaughn and Giddens. I mean, I guess I'll just throw it out here before we get to the over and unders. Do you guys see anyone on this team having 1,000 yards this year? Okay.
I do not.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Dylan Edwards, third on the team with 546 yards on the ground on 74 attempts last year. 196 of those yards, though, to be fair, came in the Rate Bowl. He averaged 7.4 yards per carry. Joe Jackson ran for 227 yards on 39 carries, averaged nearly 6 yards a rush. I'm going to set the over-under for Dylan Edwards rushing yards. Keep in mind he had 546 last year on 74 attempts. Over-under on Edwards rushing yards at 825.
Under. Under, yeah, because I think there's going to be probably at least 3, maybe 4 games where he's not leading the team in carries. So,
yeah, I mean, I think I would go under. Like I was pretty definitive saying no 1,000-yard rusher here, so this is still like halfway close to that. Say under, maybe like in the 700-yard range, probably for Dylan Edwards. So that too. I mean, I think his total yards is like a different kind of conversation because I think they can use him in the passing game. I think they'll be better at that this year. I think it's hard to be much worse than they were, quite frankly, at trying to use him in the passing game last year. I like Joe Jackson. It seems like we're hearing good things about the running back room behind him, and obviously Antonio Martin's a part of that too. So. Yeah, I think more by committee. It'll look a lot different this year in terms of how they do it.
It's good. It's going to be interesting. I said at least 3 or 4 games where he's not the leader in carries. It's probably much more than that, if we're being quite honest, because he's going to split time with Joe Jackson, maybe Antonio Martin. Avery's going to get some carries. He's going to be used as a receiver. I think there's a better chance he's under 700 than he is over 800.
Just frustrating looking back at the game logs from last year, guys. 8 games of 6 carries or less for Dylan Edwards out of the 12 that he saw time in. And then obviously receptions, same thing. He had so many games with 7-8 touches, and it wasn't enough for a guy of his talent. We talk about Dylan Edwards, we talk about Avery Johnson in terms of explosive plays, right? Well, I mean, I think I would have expected more big runs, big plays from Dylan Edwards last year that I think we're going to see more of this year. Look at Dylan Edwards last year. He had the 65-yard run in the bowl game against Rutgers. He had a couple other explosives. But outside of that, his longest run was 44 yards against KU. And then he didn't have another rushing attempt over 30 yards last year. And I think he's going to be more explosive. I'm going over Dylan Edwards. I'm not going to have him quite at 1,000, but I think we're going to see those numbers jump. And I think he's going to have a heck of a year. So I'm going to take the over on the 825 yards.
I mean, you're really making it tight because you said Avery Johnson's a leading rusher under 869, but Dylan's over 825. So you're going to have them basically identical. And so I'm just saying you're really the needle is very thin there. Yeah. Threading the needle.
There's the first insult thrown my way at my numbers. So
scientifically, I was just look for me. I think Dylan Edwards, we're probably looking at 650 rushing, 500 receiving, something like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to get to the Dylan Edwards receiving yards here in a few minutes. But that one, it's hard to figure out what they're going to do there, what the numbers are going to look like. But I think Dylan Edwards is going to make a substantial jump. I'll throw in, guys, Joe Jackson, 600 over under.
Slightly under.
Over.
Slightly under. Health concerns. I don't know if he's going to stay healthy for an entire season.
Yeah, health concerns. If he's healthy for an entire season, I think he has more rushing yards than Dylan Edwards.
All right, that's a bold take.
I don't think it's that bold. I think he's really the true running back. I think Dylan Edwards is going to line up out wide so many times that people are going to consider Joe Jackson the running back on this team.
I kind of tend to gravitate toward DY with that, like, especially with what we've seen from him. Like he's got some real punch to him, man. Like he does look to me like if he's healthy and out there, like he is a legitimate back. Whereas Dylan Edwards is more of like offensive weapon. And I know, like I don't mean to like be offensive with that because I feel like it comes across like that. It's Dylan Edwards could absolutely be a guy who takes 15 carries between the tackles throughout a game. I don't doubt that. We saw him do that, and he was we saw him be very effective running the tackles multiple times last year. But Joe Jackson seems like a little bit more traditional in that sense, where it's like Dylan Edwards is just tantalizing all the different ways you could use him. And I think you just got to get really creative, and you could just all off to Joe Jackson.
Agree. And Dylan take that as offensive. Every time you talk to him in the media room, and we have multiple times now since he's arrived at Kansas State, he actually doesn't consider himself a running back. He always calls himself offensive weapon, all-purpose back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Honestly, smart move by him. That's 4D chess, man. He's trying to angle for like getting like an offensive weapon position on the first team All Big 12 squad, so you don't have to compete with the running backs. That's smart.
He got one, I think. Isn't that what he's gotten in some at least from some outlets. So I also think if you start to characterize yourself as that, you also give yourself a better chance of making it on Sundays, because if your stature, you got to start morphing yourself into that kind of style.
Okay, I'll take a slight under on Joe Jackson.
Something just maybe a stat to consider when we're talking about these running backs and how the touches are going to be divvied up and how the yards will be divvied up. The last time they did like a true running back committee was actually Chris Kleiman's first year with, was James Gilbert.
I was just thinking that. I was like, it was like Jordan Brown and
Harry Trotter.
Harry Trotter. Shout out to Harry Trotter.
Yeah. And Skylar actually had the second most carries that year, which is interesting. And he had 11 rushing touchdowns. But James Gilbert was the leading rusher that year with 737 yards.
Yeah. Shout out to Skylar Thompson. Take that, Mason. Skylar Thompson hater. Mason both.
I forgot that Mason was a Skyler hater. So
I heard him taking some shots on Bosco's boys.
On that trivia. Actually, I was probably on that with him as I tanked the trivia on Bosco's boys. That was
405 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns that year. So only 3.5 yards to carry, but 11 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
Skyler 316, baby.
Yeah. I'm gonna take the slight under on Joe Jackson rushing yards. I also think he's a guy they like using in the passing game. Like we talk about Dylan Edwards a lot in the passing game, guys, but I think they like using Joe.
Yeah,
a bit too.
I just don't know that they'll be able to, because they're going to need someone to be an actual back. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move to receiving. Jace Brown, 823 yards on 47 receptions in 2024, 17.5 yards per catch.
That's a lot. Yeah. The yards per catch is really what inflated that, because what you said, 47 catches?
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Well, he was top 10 in the country in catches of 40 yards or more and 50 yards or more.
That's how he got the 800 number. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been one of the more explosive wide receivers actually in the country with that.
Which sometimes blows me away, because something that bothers me is like I feel like he could just run and get more yards, and then he tries to zigzag all over the field after the catch.
Oh, see, I think sometimes that's effective though. He kind of
maybe. I just wish he would trust his speed more. He's 22 miles per hour, just outrun the angle.
Yeah, I don't. I've been watching a lot of the season highlights lately, and some of those times I was like, dude, he finds creative yards by kind of getting creative in the way he does that. But you might be right. You might be right that there are times he could bust that a little bit. Really, look, Jace had plenty of big play explosive ability, but between Jace and Dylan and Avery, what we're saying is like we feel like their straight line speed should be creating a lot more like 70-yard plays than it is.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Jace last year, 65-yard touchdown catch against Iowa State, had a 61-yard reception against Houston, 50-yard touchdown, obviously, against Colorado, 55 against Oklahoma State, 48 versus Arizona, 44 versus UT Martin, and then he had a 42-yarder versus KU. So
that's impressive.
Yeah.
Dude, if he gets to like 60 catches, he's going to have like 1,200 yards.
Yeah. And despite that, only 2 games where he went over 100 yards last year, but
because of I think it's the volume of catches. He's got to get the ball more, only 47 times.
Yeah. So, And in the bowl game, guys, this off topic, they gave him 3 carries for 42 yards. So his long was 34 yards in the bowl against Rutgers. I also wonder, will they use him more on jet sweeps and motion and get him involved a little bit more just to get him extra touches?
Of the starters, receivers, he's probably that guy. And you don't want to get too predictable. So what I'm about to say, just take it with a grain of salt, but that could be Edwards as a receiver too. Yeah.
The previous high in the Chris Kleiman era for receiving yards was 725 by Malik Knowles in 2022. So Jace set that mark, beat it by 98 yards. He now ranks 27th in all-time career receiving yards at K-State with 1,260 already. He's number 8 in program history with just over 17 yards per catch.
Most in a single season by a sophomore. Broke Tyler Lockett's record or someone's. Yeah.
This is a question for John, DY. A little trivia. John, who is number 1 in yards per catch in K-State history at 20.5? He did it on 106 receptions and 2,100 plus yards. So this was a good player.
Okay. So how many yards? Give me the yards again.
2,173 yards,
2,106
receptions.
Okay,
Don't
well,
be Googling that.
Well, I'm gonna say. Well, but 2 guys popped to mind immediately. I was like, well, Aaron Lockett had a couple, literally 80-yard catches, but I don't think he got to that in his career. So I would say Quincy Morgan.
You got it, Quincy Morgan.
I actually looked up Quincy Morgan because that was going to be my guess. I watched a lot of Quincy Morgan because he played for Cleveland Browns. So
yeah. Quincy Morgan, number 1. Byron Pringle, number 2 at 19.6 yards per catch. James Terry, 3rd at 19.5. And you mentioned,
probably is that Oklahoma State game to think.
Yeah. Aaron Lockett, 5th at 17.5 yards per catch. I will throw in number 7, Dalton Schoen.
Yeah.
At 17.05.
No, he's one of the more underrated receivers in the last 10 years.
Yep. All right, so look, we've talked ad nauseum about a 1,000-yard receiver at K-State. The last player to do it was Tyler Lockett and our guy Curry Sexton. They both did it in the 2014 season. But I'm not even going to say 1,000 yards for the over-under for Jace. Instead, let's do this. The 10th highest single season for receiving yards at K-State is a tie at 928 between Aaron Lockett in 1998 and Greg Washington in 1988. So I'm going to set the over-under for Jace at 928 yards.
See, to me, a lot of this comes down to how much do you believe in the rest of the receiving core? Is it going to be better enough to where things will get spread around, or is Jace going to be total go-to guy?
5 guys caught 200 or more yards last year.
Man, it's a tough one. I mean, this is right. I think he'll be flirting with 1,000, somewhere between 900 and 1,000. I've been pretty optimistic with the passing numbers in general here, so I'm gonna continue that trend. I will say over. I'll say over for Jace Brown.
And I had K-State Avery a touch under 3,000, but that's still I'm gonna find basically 250 yards. And I think I can do that with giving Jace the over here. And maybe the wide receiver production, not that it was great last year, but it was kind of spread out once you got beyond Jace. And I think you could see where a lot of it's just 3 guys and Dylan. And then, you got the tight ends, but the tight ends didn't do a lot between the 20s, if you guys recall. They did most of it in the red zone. So maybe that changes. I don't know. But I think I can. With the way I have Avery's passing yards, I still think Jace can get this, and it feels like he just needs to get to be honest, 8 more catches go from 47 to 55, and he'd probably hit it easy.
I'm taking the over here, guys, and I think he's going to flirt with 1,000 yards. So I took Avery Johnson over, 3,000, and I think Jace is obviously his favorite target, and I think he's just going to continue to evolve and take another step in his game. And
Avery's going to be a touch under or a touch over. And if he is, that's at least a 250 to 300 yard jump. Jace is probably going to be the beneficiary of that, or one of them.
DY, you mentioned second leading receiver last year. Such a big delta between Jace's 823 yards.
It's 359. 359 by Keegan Johnson.
Yeah, it's not good enough. You got to have a second leading receiver that is higher up. So
The third receiver was Jaden Jackson at 207, and the fourth it was Dante Cephas at 184. Like I could see it being around like go 1,000, 650, 700, then 300 or 400, and then you probably going to have less guys in the around 200 because they had like plenty of other ones there, and Dylan's going to get some too.
And when you say receiver, to be clear to our listeners, like DJ Giddens, I believe, was third in terms of receiving yards, but he's a running back. Yeah.
With 258.
Yeah. And then Garrett Oakley, I think, was fourth, maybe even at 236.
He was.
Yeah. So
Garrett Oakley had the most touch, well, tied with Jace. Garrett Oakley had the most touchdown catches on the team, and I think he played 7 games.
So that brings us to Jerron Tibbs, Purdue transfer, had over 300 yards at Purdue prior to transferring to K-State. We've heard a lot of buzz on Tibbs. DY, you really like him as well. He's a bigger physical wide receiver, 6'3", 210, 215 pounds. I'm going to set the over-under for Tibbs at 600 yards.
I'll say over, not a ton over, but I'll say over. I would go a ton over just based on his actual caliber. But I think Avery's like connection with Jace is going to kind of vulture a little bit away from what maybe he could ultimately produce if he got the targets. I think Jace Brown gets more yards. Tibbs gets more touchdowns.
I mean, I think he'll probably be like a 500-yard guy. I'm going to say under. This is where we got to have some levity with the receiver room, the talk about the receivers. Love that we're excited about it. I think that's all good and fine, but I think you gotta be a little bit tempered with some of this stuff. So I'm gonna go just under. I think Tibbs can be great, but I think 500 yards would be fantastic for him. So I'm gonna go under.
I'm gonna stick over
because I think way off.
A touch over, and Jace flirting with 1,000 gets you to only 1,600 between the two. And I really don't have a lot of trust in anyone else in that room. So I don't think it's a big leap there at all. It's interesting. In 2022, they had 3 receivers have 45 or more catches.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, guys, just for historical context, K-State's second leading receiver, and this is all positions, not even just but it's obviously going to come down to wide receiver. 2023, Phillip Brooks at 589. 2022, Phillip Brooks at 587, and 2021, Deuce Vaughn at 468, and Malik Knowles in 2019, 397, excluding the pandemic season.
If Phillip Brooks and flirt with 600 as the number 2 receiver in 2 different seasons, I think Jerron Tibbs can.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the over on Tibbs. So I'm buying into the hype, and if it proves to be wrong, I'm going to punch DY. So because he's getting me even farther motivated.
Yeah, but I think the next receiver could have 200 yards or less.
Yeah. Let me get to this. I know we only have 5-6 minutes left here. Lincoln Cure over under receiving yards 150.
That's so hard.
It's a pretty good number. How many catches do we think it would take to get 150 yards?
Well, he's got big play potential, right? So
yeah.
What, maybe 10, 11? I'll tell you this, John. I just know this off memory. Garrett Oakley in 2023 had 11 receptions for 154 yards. So you're looking at like 15 yards a catch.
That was his redshirt freshman year.
Yeah.
I'm going to say under.
Garrett Oakley also had less to deal with. He just had Ben Sinnott, but he didn't have like 4 guys in front of him.
Yeah, I'm going to say under.
No real conviction. I'll say under because it's safer.
I'm going to take the over, and I just think there's going to be some opportunities, and the big play potential is the reason why. Like Lincoln Cure has the athleticism in a mismatch where he could hit a 40-yarder, and then the number becomes far more feasible. Now, I do think they might use him more in the red zone too, so I don't. It'll be really fascinating what we see, what Luke Wells and what Matthew Middleton do with him. He's going to probably be split out wide more this year as a true freshman. But, I mean, hearing Chris Kleiman say he's up to 245 pounds, that's pretty damn encouraging, guys.
Yeah.
So, Dylan Edwards, 19 receptions for 133 yards in 2024. At Colorado in 2023, he had 299 yards on 36 receptions. Over under receiving yards for Dylan Edwards in 2025, setting it at 399.
Oh, I was about ready to be convicted in going over, but yeah, I guess I'll say over. If I'm going to be under on some of the other receiver numbers, I'll say over.
Well, remember how Matt Wells used him in the bowl? Remember how he was used in the bowl game in terms of downfield passing? Whoever was calling the plays and that, they utilized him more going downfield, going vertical. I mean, they took like 2 deep shots with Dylan in that game, and they got him.
You also got to count on Avery to start hitting those deep balls if you're going to get that.
Yeah. You remember Matt Wells said, darn it, Ave, on one of those throws in the bowl game because they tried to get one. So I'm taking the over on Dylan. I think he's going to have a really good season from a pass catching standpoint.
DY, I'm pretty sure you already had him at 500 yards earlier.
You did. Yeah, so he's got to take the over. He already said he's going to have over 500.
Yep.
Yeah. He's probably like, well, why do you set the number so low?
I would say it'll be. I would say 450 to 500 if I'm going to be a little bit more measured and calculated. Yeah. I think he can get to like 140, 150 alone on big plays. So
all right.
Find 300 more.
Rapid fire here. Garrett Oakley over under 300. He had 236 last season.
300.
Yeah.
Over.
Under.
I think that next receiver is just going to be
over for me, and now I'm finding myself taking the over on every single passing category, so I'm going to end up with Avery again at 8,000 yards through the air. Botched snaps this year, 8.5 over under. I'm kidding. That was a cheap shot. All right.
Okay. Well, I can appreciate that. But yeah, I was like, hold on. There were like 3 or 4 last year, maybe. But
John, going through the issues of 2024 as we're doing show prep for the preview shows here on 3MA, I was reminded that K-State had a field goal blocked at the Iowa State 6-yard line or 3-yard line, where they didn't block the edge guy. And then obviously against Arizona State, they couldn't get the snap down at the 3 or 6-yard line in that and took the loss. And then that happened again against Houston, and then they couldn't get an extra point down. It was a real reminder on the special teams debacles, especially in the back half of last season. Special teams touchdowns. K-State recorded 1 off a true return in 2024. It was the Dylan Edwards punt return TD against Arizona and non-con in Manhattan. They also blocked a punt for a touchdown against UT Martin in the season opener. I feel like they do that almost in every season opener against FCS schools. Over under special teams touchdowns in 2025, 1.5. And we obviously can include blocked kicks returned as well.
Yeah, those are rare. And kick and punt returns are just rare in general. Everyone gets mad because Kansas State's not doing them as much. It's hard to do them now with the rules that they've set forth. The way that you can block on those, the way that Kansas State blocked for years on those is now illegal. I'll say under.
I'm going to say under. Maybe 1. Maybe you find 1. But yeah, it's just a different day and age, man.
I'll go under 2. One more team one. K-State forced 15 turnovers last season. This was an issue. They ranked 89th in the country. But in 2023, 23 turnovers forced with, ranking 21st. And in 2022, 14th in the country with 24 turnovers forced. So over under turnovers forced in 2025 by the K-State defense, I'll set it at 18.5.
I'll say over. You got a D-line like that. It usually allows you to be a little bit more disruptive.
But it's do you buy that they've got a real difference maker like they've had in Felix and Brendan Mott, like Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year caliber player there.
Even if you don't, if your guys are just that much fresher on a 4, they could look that way.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just try to be glass half full here, I suppose, and say over the second. I was trying to think how it would work with the secondary. If you're like, secondary is not going to have as much top end talent, but more steady across the board. Does that lead to fewer turnovers, but just better defense in general? I don't know. How many picks did Parrish and Siegel have last year?
Well, Parrish didn't have a many because they didn't throw it to him, and Siegel dropped a lot. So
Siegel did. He had a pick 6 at West Virginia.
Yeah.
I just throughout his career, there's a reason why Mason called him Stone Hands. So if you just got guys that catch, then they'll be a little bit better too. This one's kind of stab in the dark. I mean, if you listen to all the smart analytical people that Cole touts when he does all of his previews and data analysis stuff, they all say turnover is more luck than it's like 90% luck. So
I'll say over. What the hell?
I'm going to say over because I think the trend in 2022-23, I just think they'll get back to a jump there. They're top 25 in the country both those years. I also had Jaron Bradley for receptions, receiving yards at 400. I was going to take the under on that, guys.
I think I would go maybe under 250. Like, I'm not real big on that one.
Okay. And then I had a tight ends general question where K-State's tight ends combined for 489 yards last season. In 2023, they had 896 yards combined, with Sennett leading the way with 676. Got 595 in 2022, 505 in 2021. And we've heard that the tight end room might be the deepest in the offense. And I was going to count Lincoln Cure as a tight end and set the over-under for receptions or receiving yards from K-State's tight ends combined at 700.
I would go under.
Slightly under.
You got to, just because they're deep doesn't mean they'll get thrown to a lot either. I mean, takes two to tango here.
Yeah, I think I'll take the over because I think I had Garrett Oakley over 300 and Lincoln Cure right over 150 right out of the gate, guys. So that puts me over 450. And then I'm really high, like DY is, on Will Ancio. So
I like him a lot. I do like him a lot.
All right, did I do well? You guys didn't bully me enough on this, so I must have given you some pretty good numbers.
Well, it's enough over the years has really changed how this thing has gone. Reminder, everybody, join us at the watch party August 23rd. Hang out with us in Weston at Holiday Distillery. You can click the link in the description of this video to get your tickets. $25. That includes a welcome cocktail, tastings of Five Farms Irish Cream and Holiday Bourbon, hot dogs and hamburgers from Batchelder Family Farms. So you're going to get fed, you're going to get great booze, and you're going to get to hang out with us and watch K-State and Iowa State in Ireland. Big thanks to Nick Springer behind the scenes, of course. Thanks to Holiday Distillery. And for Derek Young and Cole Manbeck, I'm John Kurtz. Thanks for listening to another edition of 3 Ma.